everyone. Eric Olsen from Helps Law Firm here on January 27th, 2025. Um, my name's Eric, attorney for 46 years, the founder of Helps. Helps is a national law firm. We represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay. Our most important message to you is that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefits, your other forms of retirement or disability income is protected by federal and state laws that can't be taken from you. It's available for your needs. You don't need to use it to pay a debt you can't afford to pay. And we talk about other things. Our main mission is to protect seniors from debt collector harassment. We do that under a federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act that provides if you're represented by an attorney, collectors have to leave you alone. We also educate seniors how to maintain their independence, financial independence. And if you have questions, please put it in the chat. I'll address them. Okay. So occasionally, well, not regularly, I'll look at the internet and type in, seniors in debt. And yesterday I saw an article by a website called Daily Caring, and the article was awful. And I wrote a comment on it. I'll show you the article. Well, before I show it to you, I'll show you. And then I was going to show it to you today and tell you how bad it is. And then I saw the article today, and I said, gee, it's got a new date on it. It looks like it's been updated. It was a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago. And then I made a comment on it, and then down at the end, the guy says, he says, excellent comment and great advice, Eric. This article was a legacy article. I mean, it was an old article that needed a bit of work, as you mentioned. I rewrote the article with an editor inspired by your comments. Thank you so much for your thoughts. So I'm going to show you the article. There's still a few problems, but man, it sure is a lot better. Okay. And I'm glad they did it. The problem with the internet, there's so much misinformation out there. Okay, there's just wrong information for seniors. So here we go. I think it's here. There we go. So this is the website. You can see it was updated today. And so 4 debt forgiveness options for seniors. The one thing he put in the article when he updated it today, after I wrote him the comments, he put this part: know your rights, the judgment-proof protection. And I'm glad he did this. Before you pay a single dollar toward old credit card debt or medical bills, understand that Social Security, VA benefits, and most pensions, virtually all pensions, by the way, are legally protected from debt collectors. If these benefits are your primary source of income, you may not be known as what is judgment proof, meaning creditors cannot legally seize this money even if they win a lawsuit against you. And then originally in the article, he suggested that they have payday loans. That was a way to get out of debt. And on my comment, I told him, I don't know if my comment's down here or not, I said, why would a senior use a payday loan with this horrendous interest to pay a debt with much lower interest? And so finally they say the trap of payday loan consolidation. And he changed the article completely to say they're not a good idea, especially to get out of debt. And originally, if I remember right, this article was written by an attorney. But anyway, this guy who revised it, not an attorney, but okay. Then balance transfer and credit realities. And he said exactly what I told him. And he says, a balance transfer card, most seniors struggling with significant debt will not have the high credit score required to qualify for these promotional cards. And then talks about reverse mortgages. And before he suggested reverse mortgage as a way to pay debt. But now he says the reality check, your home is your nest egg. That's what I told him. Taking out a reverse mortgage to pay off unsecured debt, which collectors often can't legally seize anyway, is a high-risk trade-off. You are essentially liquidating your home's value to pay a debt that may not have had legally enforceable against your protected income. Yeah, yeah. So good for him. And then concerning bankruptcy, ultimate reset. Which really isn't the best way to go or necessary for a lot of seniors. Anyway, I'll write this guy a nice letter, tell him thank you for changing things. Usually, when I write comments, sometimes they'll remove my comment or they never do anything. So anyway, I like your questions. Wendy says, when you ask for addresses for creditors, sometimes there's so many addresses on bills or documents, I'm confused on which one to give you. Usually the one that you send to pay the bill. We also have a master address list, but you know, just the when you pay the bill, whatever that address is, and when you give us the creditors you don't want to hear from anymore, all we need is the name, address, and account number. We don't need the balance. Kat asks, my deceased sister has a credit card with Chase. Now they're calling on who is handling the estate. Shall I move money out to a different bank? I'm beneficiary. It's in my name. Well, if she doesn't have an estate, um, no need to move the money. If you were the beneficiary of your sister's bank account, if she had your name on there to get the money when she died, that doesn't go through probate. That just goes automatically to you. Therefore, the Chase doesn't have any interest in that money. No need to worry about it. Okay. Um, let me mute my phone so I don't get this ringing in my ears every few minutes. There we go. I'm afraid they're going to get that money after we were closing. It was paid. No, 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 no. No. It's like this. If you own like a bank account with you and someone else, and both your names are on the account, or they're the beneficiary of the account and it goes to you automatically at their death, then it automatically goes to you at their death. It's not. It doesn't go through probate. It's your money. Okay. You can call and ask questions on that, but no, there's not an issue there. Okay. Here we go. Um, just got to get up to the right screen here. So I'll read you what my comment was to that article, the way it was originally written. And I didn't want to be offensive, and I tried not to be, but I said, sorry, but this is very bad advice for seniors struggling with debt, because it was terrible. Why wouldn't the author let seniors know the most important thing they need to know is that their Social Security and other retirement income is protected by federal and state laws? This money can't be taken from them and is available for their needs. It doesn't need to be used to pay all debt. Well, they changed the article and they put that in there, which is good. Why wouldn't a senior use a payday loan? Why would a senior use a payday loan with its horrendous interest to pay a debt with much lower interest? You wouldn't do that. You don't need to do that. Since when can a senior struggling with a debt qualify for a balance transfer card? Debt settlement companies, with rare exceptions, will never tell a senior that their income is protected and doesn't need to be used to pay all debt. I'll get that. I talk about that all the time. If you're signed up with a debt management or debt settlement company and you're struggling and you were you were never told that your income was protected, you weren't given complete advice by that debt settlement or debt management company. They withheld the most important information you need to know, and that's the fact that your income is protected. It doesn't need to be used to pay debt you can't afford to pay. Um, equity in a home for a senior is their nest egg. Why would they get a reverse mortgage and use that money to pay off old debt they don't have to pay anyway? So hats off to the gentleman on that article who corrected it. Um, So Bob says, I'm 73 years old and have a business. Recently, I had a heart attack, and a week out later, triple bypass, and the prognosis is not good long term. I, I will only have Social Security and pension. Well, you can look at more of our videos, Bob, or you can call us on the phone. We can go over your situation. But if you're getting Social Security and a pension, that income is going to be protected. And if you're saddled with a bunch of debt, you don't have to pay it. And you can call us. We can go over this. Okay, or you can look at our webpage, www, where is it down here, www.helpsishere.org. Help with an S on the end. That stands for Help Eliminate Legal Problems for Seniors. Helps. Okay? And you say, my house is in my wife's name, so I think they can't not get anything. What do you think? You're right, they can't. So uh, the house could be in both your names. A lot of times, the husband and wife own the property together. Okay? And So which means is when one spouse dies, it automatically goes to the other spouse. But in your case, if it's in your wife's name and you have a bunch of debt in your name, creditors aren't going to come after your wife. Now, um, some people might say, well, Eric, what if it's a community property state? Okay. There are I think there's like 7 states are community property states, which means that uh, if you have an asset, it's in just one's name, it's deemed to be owned by both of you if you're married. Or if you have a debt, if one of the parties owe the debt, the other spouse owes the debt as well. However, it's not the practice of consumer judgment creditors in consumer property uh, states to go after a spouse for a debt for a spouse that doesn't for the other spouse who owes the money and didn't pay it. So you're not going to need to worry about that. Okay. If there was a problem, there's things we can do. There's things that can be done. So no, you're going to be okay. Which brings up kind of another topic. I saw another article. Uh, it's called filial laws, Filial. Now that's a law that says that children have a responsibility to take care of their parents and pay their parents' debt. And I was going to show the article, but then I decided not to. The article, the title made it. If you read it and read the title and you thought, "Oh, my mom, I'm going to have to pay my mom and dad's debt," but the article pretty much explained at the beginning that no, that these rules aren't in effect. Even if states that have filial laws, they don't enforce the rule. But they did highlight a case in Pennsylvania from I think 2012 or a few years ago. But that was extraordinary facts. Okay, and so no, you're not going to be responsible for a parent's debt. And if you're a parent, you don't need to be You don't need to worry about your kids being responsible for your debt. Okay. I'm 46, did 40,000 bankruptcies, helped since 2012. In my entire practice, I've never seen a creditor go after a kid for a debt that mom and dad owed. Now, it's different if the kid signed on the debt with mom and dad. Okay. Um, but no, they're not going to go after you. Okay. Now, you could always think of a scenario where that could happen, uh, like this case in 2012, but the facts were so unusual. Sometimes they use the example of worrying about the Martians coming for dinner on, we could get invaded by Martians. It's possible. We're in space. It's possible a spaceship from outer space is coming here. They could land tomorrow. Um, I don't think that's going to happen. We don't really worry about that. Okay. I went to the dentist this morning. Got to get that Band-Aid off. Anyway, the other thing, I'm continue to see articles and comments and things on the internet. People worried about losing their Social Security to student loans. So let me get this off the table right off the bat. Okay, and I talk about this a lot. Since about 2018, the government hasn't been offsetting 15% of Social Security to pay student loans. They'll never go after a person's pension, and before 2018, they were on occasion trying to take people's 15% of your Social Security, and then they stopped. Actually, Helps was involved in a lawsuit that stopped the government from doing that. It was a class action lawsuit. We were the representative plaintiff, and then in the middle of it, COVID hit, and so they stopped doing it. And then when COVID went away, Biden didn't do anything, and then they were going to start it up. And then last May 1st, Trump administration announced that they were going to start offsetting 15% of student loans or start the process. And I did a video with Senior Living, and I told him, I don't think this is going to last. For one reason, there's going to be a lot of people complaining. And I've been listening. I don't get political here, but I've been listening to Trump enough to know that he's got this thing about Social Security. He's always saying Social Security is going to be protected, blah 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 blah. And I think so. A month later, the Department of Education announced that no, we're not going to go after people's Social Security for student loans, at least not now. And that was last May or June 1st, and here it is, end of January. I don't know if they'll ever go, but if they were, there's a program, or there used to be a program called income-based repayment program. That's one reason we filed this lawsuit against the government, 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, because it was too complicated. You couldn't ask a 70 or 80-year-old senior that wasn't computer savvy to try to fill out the form to try to get the student loan on currently not collectibles or an income-based repayment plan. You couldn't ask them to do that. So, if they do start taking student loans, or like they're going to do that, you will be able to get on an income-based repayment plan if you're modest or lower income and not have to pay it. So don't be worried about the student loans, okay? And we'll be here to help you if something were to happen. So put your questions. Always press the like button if you don't mind. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, okay, it's not hard to do. And why does it help? Well, because there's a lot of seniors looking for this information. And if you've just found us and you're listening and saying, wow, I haven't heard this before, there's a lot more people out there, a lot more seniors out there that don't know about Helps. And that way, when they type in the information on the computer, on the internet, then it's going to pop up. Our videos are going to pop up, or our website's going to pop up. So, person contacts us from Virginia. I have a debt to Midland Collection for approximately $1,400. If any debt is in the hands of a law firm, I would like to negotiate a one-time payment for a lesser amount and have this removed from my credit report. I'm in the process of buying a house, so I need to make this go away. I appreciate any assistance you provide. Thank you for advance for your help. Well, we don't help people pay debt. Okay. We don't help settle debt. That's not what we do. We give legal information. We don't give legal advice. But if it's $1,400, you call them on the phone. You might be able to offer them $1,000. They might take it. We don't help people do that. You might be able to do that on your own. But you should understand that Lawsuits and judgments don't appear on your credit report. Not any, not anymore. Not since about 2018. This person calls us and says, uh, "I'm making this inquiry on behalf of my 87-year-old father, whose memory has started to decline. After being fiercely independent for quite some time, I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss the situation and your service as soon as possible." He lives in Portland, Oregon. Thank you so much. We talk to a lot of kids about mom and dad, and a lot of times we talk to mom and dad with the kids on the phone. Not always. In fact, it's a very minority of people we talk to. But if you're listening, if you're a child looking out for your mom or dad, you don't have to hesitate calling us. Do it. Or if you call us and you want someone else to be on the phone, we can always join a child on the phone, or we can talk to you and join a child later, talk to them together. I love it when kids are watching out for their parents. I think it's great. Okay. So Cindy says, looked at court docket after Capital One received a judgment lien in December last week. It added a garnishment, and you're a helps client from. Well, okay. So if your income is Social Security or pension or disability, it can't be garnished. Now, once it hits the bank account, there's a federal law that went into effect in 2012 that that tells the bank, if they get a writ of garnishment, to look at where your money came from. If it came from a federal source like Social Security, then they're to take the amount you get within the last 60 days. Usually that's 2 months. Uh, so if you got like $1,500 a month, 3,000 in your bank account, would be automatically protected from garnishment by your bank without you having to do anything. Okay. Now, you don't need to call your bank to ask them if they're going to do that. They know. They have a department of the bank that deals with garnishments. They know that. This rule's been in effect now for 15 years or longer, uh, and the banks are pretty much on board. No, they are on board. Okay. Now, if you talk to your bank manager, he's not going to understand the rule because he doesn't deal with garnishments. Okay. And I've always said, and I'll stand by it, maybe 1 out of 1,000 attorneys understand the rule. Okay. But that's the rule. And it's not up for argument. That's the rule. Twice the amount of your federal benefit protected in your bank account from garnishment. Now, so what does that mean? It means you probably, if you're sued and they're going to get a judgment, you just want one bank account, and that's account, and it's probably your checking account into which your Social Security goes, and you just keep the balance less than twice the amount. And if they were to ever garnish you, which is doubtful in the first place, your bank will protect that. Okay, technically they have 60 days. 60 days. They have 2 days to look at your account, determine where the money come from. Usually they do it within a couple minutes. Okay. Ms. H asks, Eric, how long would it take to respond to a law firm sending a suit to a client of helps to be in court? Is it fast or may take a few days? It's fast. It's fast. It's fast. Our staff is trained. We get these. We send out a letter to the attorney that sued you, letting him know your income's protected. You're not going to go to court. Uh, uh, we send you an email telling you, explain why your income is protected, why you don't need to go to court. We call you on the phone, tell you the same thing. So Cindy says the garnishment is for income, not Social Security. Well, it would have to be on your job, okay? And then it depends on how much you make in the state where you live. Some states don't allow garnishment of wages. South Carolina, Texas, and then every state, there's a federal law that protects a minimum of $217.50 net per week in every state. $435 every 2 weeks, about $945 or $950 a month net. Okay, so if you don't make more than that, you don't need to worry about a garnishment. And then they have to know where you work. Okay, and a lot of times they don't know where you work. So you can call and talk to us. Okay, if you're concerned about that. Wendy asks, why do creditors go after small amounts of money? I'm not a rocket science, but if there were higher interest cards and loans, they probably got paid back unless it's newer account. Well, okay, I don't know either. I can guess. They they count on seniors not knowing what I'm talking to you about today. They count on a senior not knowing your rights. They count on a senior not understanding that their Social Security is protected and they can't take your money. So they think if we sue them, they're going to call us on the phone, they're going to make arrangements to pay. And probably statistically, they're right. Okay. They probably have learned from that if they file more lawsuits, they're going to collect more money. Because of that, we don't have any hard data on this, but we've noticed it helps that the number of lawsuits being filed has risen dramatically over the years, especially the last year or so. Okay. A lot of lawsuits are being filed. But once again, I will tell our clients and others, if you're on protected income, I don't care if you're sued by 100 different creditors. You don't need to worry about it. You're not going to need to go to court. They can't take anything from you. And the whole purpose of helps, when you enroll in helps, we're going to send a letter to the creditors you owe money to. Probably makes it less likely they would sue you. At least if they read our letter, they're going to stop bothering you. But if they say, okay, well, this person knows their rights, it's a way. But you may still get sued. You get us the information. We're going to let them know that you're not going to pay it. We're going to call you, tell you why, don't worry. We represent our clients ongoing. So if you enroll in helps today, and you might not get sued for 2 or 3 years, and you may from now, and you may never get sued. But if you do, then you're going to get that information to us 2 or 3 years or 4 years down the road. We're going to send a letter to the attorney who sued you, and so we represent you ongoing. It's not one time, so you can always call and talk to us. Okay. So Her Majesty says, I just got a 1099-C from Capital One, which took over Discover for cancellation of debt. I owe Discover 16.5. How do I claim insolvency doing a tax return? Well, okay. If you file, you may not be required to file a tax return. If your only income is Social Security, you're not even required to file a tax return. And if you have a little bit of other income, 14,000 or less, you're probably not required to file a tax return. But if you are required to file a tax return, there's Form 982, if I remember right, the numbers right, and like 1A on the form is you click a box if you're insolvent, which means your debt pretty much means that your debt exceeds the assets. But even if you did owe the taxes and you did file the return, and it does you owe some taxes because see what a 1099-C is when you don't pay a debt, and if it's over $600, technically a creditor is required to send a notice to the IRS saying, "Hey, this person didn't pay this debt, therefore it should be counted towards income to them." But if you did owe taxes, then and you're going to qualify for currently not collectible status. We can help you on that. So we don't run into a problem with our clients having a problem with 1099-Cs. So Cindy says, I guess I was surprised to see they both have both a judgment and a lien and garnishment. Well, okay, they can't garnish you until they have a judgment. So garnishment takes place after a judgment. So they get a judgment so that they can garnish. Okay, so and if it's a garnishment, a garnishment will say if you found it on the court records, you probably don't know who they were trying to garnish because the garnishment paper itself will say it'll name either an employer or maybe someone you worked for years ago, or it might say some bank. Okay. When a creditor sues a senior by a lawyer, hasn't that creditor already gotten paid? They're just trying to get money, thinking the senior doesn't know. They may just want more money. I want to understand. Well, they haven't been. The creditor hasn't been paid. They're trying to sue you so they can collect money from you. And the attorney that sued you on behalf of the creditor or the debt collector, he's getting paid several ways. He may be getting a flat fee, and that maybe all he does is represent creditors, and he may get a little bit extra money if he can collect money, or he may be doing it completely on what's called a contingency basis, which means he files a lawsuit for no money up front except for the cost of the filing fee and maybe a little flat fee at the beginning. And then if he can collect it, then he'll get a certain percentage of whatever he collects. And then he does it on a volume basis. So he's representing literally hundreds, maybe thousands of creditors to try to collect money from people. And so it's just a volume. It's a volume game for the attorney. Does that answer your question? And most of these attorneys that sue on behalf of debt creditors like this, that's their entire practice. That's all they do is debt collection lawsuits. In fact, it's interesting that uh, in most states, a large percentage, maybe even a vast majority of lawsuits filed are debt collection lawsuits, and so they have to pay a filing fee to file the lawsuit. And a lot of times, in most cases, the filing fee doesn't compensate the court system for the cost of the processing a lawsuit. So the taxpayers are supplementing the debt collectors by letting them file lawsuits. Now, some states have taken measures to stop that. Maine, for example, passed a law. If you're a debt collector and you file a lawsuit, you got to pay an extra fee. And with that extra money, they compensate the state, and then some of the money goes to a nonprofit. When we're big enough, that helps. We're going to see if we can get that law implemented into other states, because that's a great law. And so what it does is it makes the creditor filing a lawsuit think twice about filing a lawsuit because they have to pay more money. Okay. The creditor, haven't they already got paid? No, because um, they may sell the debt to a debt collector who buys debts and tries to collect on them. They may at a discount, but then the debt collector can sue for the whole amount. Bruce says, I'm getting contact from a collection company on a debt that's 15 to 20 years old. Do I include them on my list? I'm putting it. Yeah, do it. So I like that. Okay, so every state has what's called a statute of limitations, which that means a lot of things. But one of the things with debts, it means that a creditor has so many years to file a lawsuit. After that, they legally cannot file a lawsuit. Statute of limitations can mean other things too. If you commit a crime, the state has so long to be able to convict you or to file criminal proceedings against you. Now, there's exceptions. For example, murder, they can always do that. But for a debt, and a lot of times it might be 5 years. But 15 to 20 years is way beyond the statute of limitations. But technically, they could still send you a demand. And I've seen that. Not very often. The one I recall a few months ago, the client forwarding the letter was asking to be paid this money. Then the last sentence said something like, well, by the way, we can't sue you because it's too old. So no, but you could give it to us so they don't bother you anymore. So Cindy says, so they attempt garnishment for placing a lien on your home. Thank you for the explanation. I was confused. Well, no. Normally, when they sue you and get a judgment, it can automatically become a lien on the home, depending on the state where you live. Now, it's not a lien on your particular home, but it's a lien on property that you own, normally in the county where the judgment's located. Okay? It's not like a mortgage where they describe your property. And for a lot of reasons, there's not anything to worry about that happening, and we talk about that. Okay, that helps. So this person contacts us from Washington. He's 74. He gets Social Security about a little bit over 1,700, and he has a mobile home in a park. He says, I'm 74. Due to medical issues and not being able to work for 3 years, I had to use credit cards to pay for medical procedures, co-pays, and unexpected repairs. This is worrisome and taking a toll on my health. And then he called back on January 23rd, which would have been last Friday, I think. He gets only Social Security. He owns a mobile home outright. He enrolled in helps. Doesn't need to worry. So this is a comment on one of our videos. It says, hi, thanks for everything you do. I'm signed up the credit building program. Can you tell me more about that? Sure. We have an email that we'll send you, that will send anyone that talks about, we have a program called 7 Steps to a 720 Credit Score. It's not put on by Helps, but I've hired another company called 720 Credit, Phil Tyrone, his company, and it's legitimate. We pay him a fee, and any client that's been a part of Helps for, I think, 90 days, they can contact us. We can send you a link. You can enroll in that program. You can actually rebuild your credit within a year and a half to 2 years, up to 700 credit score. You might say, well, Eric, how's that possible? Well, your credit is based on your recent credit history. Once a debt gets written off, it goes into a different category. It doesn't affect your credit score. So you don't have to pay the debt, okay? And you can still rebuild your credit, okay? Now, a lot of our clients don't care about that, but some do. And if you do, and you've been part of Helps for more than 90 days, get a hold of us. We'll send you an email with the link. Also have a video that talks about it, this program, okay? So Ms. H says, so they get a judgment and it becomes a lien on the property. How long is it good for? It depends on state law. Okay. Some states it's only good for a few years. Some states it's good for 10 years, and then it can be renewed. I read one yesterday. Was it Minnesota? It was good for 10 years. It could be renewed for 10 years, but it was a complicated process for them to renew it. But for a lot of reasons, it's not going to be an issue. Okay. So this person contacts us from Michigan. Husband and wife, they're both 66. They get Social Security, pension. They both get Social Security, and he gets a pension. They have 3 collectors that they made arrangements with. They did this. They couldn't afford it, but they did it because they didn't know that their income was protected. And apparently, they found our website or listened to our video. Now they know. The creditors take out $250 a month. They also did this because she was sued and petrified. That'd be a good title for one of our videos. Sued and petrified. We could explain why you don't need to be petrified. If you're petrified, please call. We'll talk to you. We'll explain why you're going to be okay and why you don't need to be petrified or worried. Okay. She did not want to go to court. You're not going to need to go to court. She owes them over $7,000. They do not know if they should continue this or not. The debt started accumulating higher because the husband had to retire earlier. We went over what we do. He learned via our YouTube that they cannot garnish his income. Good. Yeah. Is it too late to stop payments with this bank? Absolutely. If you're making arrangements to pay a creditor and now you're listening to me and you're realizing, I don't have to pay this. Well, you can stop. You don't need to pay him anymore. Okay? We send him some emails. We have like 400 or 500 preloaded emails. So we send him our general email. We send him email about who we help, and some other emails. Okay. Apparently the credit cards it says are in the wife's name. This called us again on January 20, and he lost the emails that we sent. So we sent him again. We're happy to do that. That's the wonderful thing about Helps. We know I'm 74. We deal with seniors. We know that seniors forget or they need things explained, not because it's just a matter of life. And that Seniors was founded Helps was founded so we could always be there to answer seniors' questions. So don't ever be embarrassed or hesitant to call. Many times I've said, my pet peeve, if someone calls and they say, I'm sorry, Eric, I didn't want to call you guys. I know you guys are busy. I didn't want to bother you, but I've really been worried. I've been losing sleep. No, you call us. If you're worried or scared, you call us, no matter how often. And if you're not a client and you're trying to learn about helps, a lot of times clients will call us 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they decide to enroll. We don't mind. We'll always talk to you. Blind paramedic says, would a judgment automatically apply to a car also looking to trade in our car for it? No, no. You know, in the back of my mind, I remember one state it could, but no, 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 no. It's not going to apply to a car. You could be able to trade in that car or sell it or whatever. Judgment normally is only on real property, which means a home on land. Now, it is possible in a few states for it to be on a mobile home. They have to go through a step of procedure for that to happen, but that's a very few states. Okay. Do you know at what point the creditors send out 1099-Cs if they decide to after they charge it off? That's when they do it, when they charge it off. And a lot of times they don't do it. Now, I usually file tax returns. I'm still working part time. Okay. Remember, if your income's low enough, you're not even required to file tax returns. And even if you do file tax returns and they do a 1099-C, if you're insolvent, you don't have to pay it. But if you're not insolvent, you do owe taxes. It's not very much, and you can get on um, currently not collectible status. Probably we can talk to you about that. We have emails that talk about that. So this last guy talked about whose wife had the debt. Um, they called back yesterday. We resent them the emails and ready to get enrolled. They reviewed our emails that we sent them. He has a loan with Lendumo, whoever that is. I never heard of that. It's an unsecured personal loan. Can we assist with S? What's the answer? Altogether, yes. Yes. We can help any debt you have. Okay. Been 5 years since charge-offs. Haven't got a 1099-C. Well, you probably never will. I wouldn't worry about it. And if you got one, I wouldn't worry about it anyway. Will a property tax judgment affect my Social Security pension? Are these? Yes. Well, okay. Property taxes are owed by the property, not by you individually, which means we're talking about taxes on a home, on land. And it needs to be paid, otherwise the county could eventually foreclose. But it has nothing to do with your Social Security. Okay? That answer your question, John? Yeah. I called the IRS. They told me not to worry about 1090C since I'm on Social Security and have no income. I thought that was strange. That's that's right. And that's what I tell people. I say, if you get a 1099-C, you're just on Social Security, you're not required to file tax returns. Don't worry about it. Okay. IRS isn't going to do anything. Once in a while, well, the point is the creditor wants you to be worried about that and call them to make arrangements to pay. Okay. So this person contacts us from Ohio. Bless her heart, she's 95 years old, but gets pretty good income. And it says one of her big debt is Lowe's. Said she is concerned with them coming to get her appliances. Well, okay, let's talk about that. If you buy an appliance, it's common for a debt collector or for the person that sold you an appliance, they have what's called a purchase money security interest. So if you financed a refrigerator or something through Lowe's, on the form it says you granted them a purchase money security, which means they have a lien on it, which means technically they could come out to try to repossess it. You'd have to cooperate with them to give it back. But it's not their practice to come after. And the same thing with furniture. The only ones that I've seen in the past that have get upset about that is maybe a jewelry, you buy an expensive ring or something like that. Then they're gonna follow up with it. But that's called a purchase money security interest. So it is theoretically possible for Lowe's to say we want to come pick that up, but uh, I've never seen it happen. So John says, I sent a summons I received to you. Do I need to file an answer since I'm not fine? No, no. You only if you've been sued, the only reason you would file an answer is if you want to contest the lawsuit. But if you owe the money and your income's protected, uh, there's no need to fight the lawsuit. Uh, you know, um, they're eventually going to get a judgment, but they can't collect from you. That's what when you send us that lawsuit, and we usually only need the first 3 or 4 pages, we're going to send a letter to the collector, the attorney that sued you, let him know that your income's protected, that you're not going to do anything, remind them of the protected nature of your bank account, although we don't need to do that because it's protected anyway. Um, and then we contact you, explain why you don't need to go to court. No, you don't need to file an answer. So this person contacts us from Pennsylvania, age 64. She has always been on time with her debt payments. She was with Beyond Finance. That's a debt management company or debt settlement company. And my experience with them is when you enroll with someone that come like that, are they going to tell you that your income is protected? You don't need it? No. If they told you your income was protected, you didn't need to pay the debt, you wouldn't enroll with them. Said they sign seniors up, put them in utter poverty, making payments they don't need to pay. Um, she just got a summons for a $1,400 bill. It says she's supposed to appear on February 14th. Said that she has no income to pay for an attorney. She has just paid Beyond Finance $750. Didn't need to pay anything at all. She no longer has an account with them. She doesn't know what to do. Well, your income is Social Security or pay. You don't need to do anything. They can't. If they get a judgment, they can't do anything. So we went over what we did. We sent them some emails. Then they called back on January 12th or 21st. We reviewed her situation. What can we do for her? We went over what we do and updated her email address. And then she called back on January 23rd, which has been Friday. My debt now is, she talked about how she enrolled Friday with Beyond Finance, and she's no longer with it. My debt now is credit cards I've had for many years. She has 5 credit cards totaling almost over $16,000. I own nothing. I rent and get help. My income is $767 per month. I'm scared about February 13th. About having she doesn't need to go to. I can't afford it. You don't need to go to court. And she enrolled in helps. So we're going to send a letter to the attorney that she sued, telling her she's not going to court. She doesn't need to worry. And if she is worried, we're going to tell her you call us whenever you're worried because you don't need to worry. So John wants to know. Well, wait a minute. Before that, even if it was property taxes, just scared, would you send a letter even if it's about past due? We don't send a cease and desist letter on property taxes. we let you know that if you're going to keep the home, you need to pay those. But if you're scared, call and talk to us about that. If you'll pass through property taxes, normally they can't foreclose right away. There's a time period. And then also, um, also, sometimes you can get a reverse mortgage to pay the property taxes. There's you can talk to us. We'll go over options. So Bruce says, Eric, just to clarify, if we use a credit union to bank with, will they honor this 2 times the Social Security? Yeah, they will. Yeah. When the law went into effect in 2012, it took a while. It took a year or so for the banks to get on board. It took a lot longer for the credit card companies to the credit unions to get on board. But they're on board now. If there was ever a problem, we'd help take care of it. So don't worry about it. Credit unions are, after 15 years, they're finally on board. What if you send a cease and desist letter to the law firm and they continue to contact the senior anyway? What else can be done from help? Well, if the cease and desist letter has to do with contacting you about collecting a debt. There's nothing to do. The Fair Debt Collection Act doesn't prevent a debt collector from suing you. So if you get sued, the attorney can still send you the lawsuit papers. There's nothing illegal about that. What is considered low income? That's a good question. We don't, it helps we don't have an income requirement. You know, it doesn't matter, but you know, it just matters the source of your income. If it's a Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefits. Some person in California might be a millionaire compared to someone in another state because the cost of living in California is so high. So it doesn't matter what you make. To qualify for helps, you just have to have protected income: Social Security, pension, disability, VA benefit. Okay. Can I give your number to creditors? I haven't got over to you guys yet. Uh, you can, because when they call, they're going to ask, and we're going to get on the phone. We're going to get on our file. Will show that you're our client. We're going to tell them not to call you anymore. We're going to let them know that we represent you. I get so many calls, I block. They call back with different numbers. I'm going to start answering and tell them to call you guys. You do that. It's 2 times your Social Security plus pension, or only Social Security. It's federal benefits. So your pension is protected. I'll explain. So Social Security is protected if you're a retired federal worker, or a post office worker, or a railroad worker, or you get VA benefits. Twice that amount is protected automatically, no matter what monies are in there or where they came from. So if your pension's deposited in the account to which your Social Security goes, as long as you keep the balance less than twice the amount of your Social Security each month, it's protected. In the bank account, they can't garnish your pension. They can't go after the company where your pension is. Now, if you happen to have more than twice the amount in your bank account of your federal benefits, it's still protected, just not automatically. You have to file a challenge to garnishment for a claim exemption to get it released. We can help people do that, but most of our clients are pretty good about keeping the balance less than twice the amount, so it's never an issue. And you don't even need to worry about it unless you're sued and someone gets a judgment, and you may never even get sued. Okay? So for a lot of reasons, it's just not a worry. Okay. Person calls us from Texas. We just got a few minutes. This is a 401k, which is exempt, by the way. No one can take your 401k or your IRA. For the deceased wife will be transferred into your IRA account. Then it's going to be protected there. He lives in an RV and would like to surrender it. You can do that. Wife passed away just recently. We talked to this person with his son on the line. How would it be best to find a new apartment? We went over that. So if you he wanted to know about returning the RV. So let's talk about returning an RV for a second. This is the note from December. He says, called to discuss surrender letter he received from the lender with the RV. Should I sign it? You can. The verbiage of the document says I'm responsible for the deficiency amount. Yeah, you will be, but you're not going to have to pay it. And then he called us. Looks like yesterday he received they repossessed the RV. It looks like they sold it right away, and he got a deficiency letter yesterday. And so he says he's ready to enroll, and he enrolled yesterday. So what happens if you got an RV that's going to go back, a camper, RV, whatever? Wait till you're behind on the payment, and then they call you about the missed payment. Then you tell that person that you don't want it anymore. That's the same with a car. Now, if you have a car that's going to go back and you want to keep driving it, don't talk to them. Just keep driving it. Pull all your personal stuff out of it. If they happen to repossess it, then you don't risk the tow truck guy stealing your stuff. You could keep the car in a garage. They can't open your garage to take the car, and it may take them a couple of months before they get around to repossessing the car. But an RV, sometimes it takes a long time before an RV is repossessed. Why don't you just call them up and tell them I'm not going to make any more payments? Because you'll never get through to the right person. You'll get frustrated, and the person you talk to is going to get frustrated. But when you're behind, that person will know what to do. If you're not going to drive it anymore, you can take the insurance off it. If it's parked in a place where you pay a fee, you don't need to pay the fee anymore. Let the lender worry about that. Don't drive it uninsured, but if it's going to be parked and not be driven, then you take the insurance off it. Okay. So that's how an RV works. We have an email, once again, a couple of them explains about surrendering an RV or surrendering a car that you can call and we can give that to you. So it looks like it's been an hour, 59 minutes on my clock, and but I'll hear you tomorrow, same time, same place. Please press the like button. Call if you have any questions. 855-435-7787. You don't need to worry. When you call, we're going to be really nice. You're going to get answers to your questions. The whole purpose of helps is so that we can help people and you don't have to worry. So God bless, and I will talk to you tomorrow.